Everyone. Um, my name is Arthur Pontes. Welcome to my channel, inFLUENTE. In today's video, we are going to continue from where we left off in the last video, in which I promised you that I would bring a text that I wrote recently, pointing out and showing you not only the structure of an essay, but also reinforcing all of those tips that I gave you in the last video. This text is actually a short essay in the book The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, by the Portuguese author José Saramago, who won the Nobel Prize in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And the book is actually very good. And I wrote this essay and I posted it in my Instagram page because I posted a picture suggesting people who has a very good vocabulary to read this book as a way to practice their English, increasing their vocabulary, for example, as well as thinking about the things that he talked about in his book. Since it was a post on Instagram, the text is not very long, but I was able to give like a short introduction. Wrote also some paragraphs supporting my thesis statement and also giving a conclusion, and I will show you this today. However, before we move on, I would like to ask you to push the like button, because when you do that, YouTube recognize that this video is important, and it will spread, it will make available to a greater number of people. Oh, sorry. And in addition to that, if you're interested in this kind of content, subscribe to my channel. I tend to post videos on a weekly basis and that's it. Okay, so with no further delay, let's move on to the text. And I apologize because last video my computer is a little bit small, so it's difficult for me to see my image as well as the text, and I didn't realize that as I was writing things down on the Word, it was not showing on the screens that you guys are actually seeing, so I apologize for that. It will not happen again, hopefully, but at least like not this time. So let's move on. Okay, let's begin here. I gave like a brief title, Rethinking Christendom. Okay, and the text begins like that. Most of us are well aware of the biblical account of Jesus' life. When you're writing an essay, the first sentence, what I like to do is actually give a very broad, very generic sentence, and I think this is one of those. It's very broad. Okay, and then I continue like, yet in the book The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, José Saramago gives us another perspective on the events surrounding the life of the man who brought about Christendom. A description that sometimes sounds ordinary, but at others extremely thought-provoking. So here it's a very common introduction, just a few sentences. You can see that my sentences, they are small, okay, I have used also a yet, like have you used yet, which is a conjunction, and it's by doing that I'm able to connect this sentence with this one, and it's that idea that I told you guys of a text having cohesion, where the sentences are linked to one another. So by using conjunctions you can do that. And in the last video I mentioned actually 3 types of conjunctions, those ones that gives you an idea of addition. I also talked about conjunctions related to showing a conclusion. Okay, some of the conjunctions that you can use to do that is like therefore, in conclusion, and so on. And also conjunctions that gives you an idea of an opposite idea, which is here what I have done with yet. Yet is one of those conjunctions. Okay. My thesis statement, I don't know if you was able to pick that up, but it is here a description that sometimes sounds ordinary in a sense of common, okay, because we all know the story about Jesus' life. He was born and he carried out a lot of miracles throughout his life, and he said that he was the Son of God. Later on he gave his life for humanity, and so on. So this is the story that we are aware of. However, Saramago, although he talks about that, he at some points he also like tries to argue that maybe some of the things that they talked about in the Holy Bible might not be true. So that's why I said that it is like extremely thought-provoking at other times. So this is my thesis statement. This is what I'm gonna argue in favor of. Okay, so then I continue saying that Saramago begins his story from the end. He portrays Jesus being nailed to the cross, while some of his devotees pray at a distance. The Portuguese author outlines the scene beautifully, giving us the impression that we are looking at a painting on the wall. So this is pretty ordinary. I mean, when you see about, I don't know, if you watch a movie like The Passion of Christ is always about that, like Jesus being nailed to the cross and so on, and we are aware of that. Saramago talks about that, so it's part of my thesis statement that like it sounds ordinary, things are common, so he talks about that. One thing that I also want you to pay attention, and it's interesting for you to do when you're writing an essay or text in general, you can see that I didn't use like the author, but in one part I used the author's name, the other one, like in another part to refer to Saramago, I just used like the Portuguese author, because I mean he's Portuguese and I will be talking about the same person. So try always to use like synonyms. If you're using one word over and over again, look it up in the dictionary, some synonyms for that word, and like change it from time to time. Okay, you will see that it makes your text like much richer. Cool. Then I move on, saying the author then moves back in time to the beginning of Jesus' life, specifically at the time in which Mary, his mother, finds out that she's pregnant. Here, the carpenter's wife goes outside of her tent to get some fresh air, but she stumbles onto a beggar, a rare image to that region of the world. Okay? So I mean, there weren't beggars like in the middle of the desert. Okay, so as if by magic, she sees the beggar's clothes changing from pieces of rags to an astonished iron garment. After the beggar informs her she's carrying a child. So I mean, this is pretty common right? And then I move on a little and say these events are well known to all. So the first part of my thesis statement. So I have done that. I showed some examples. I described some things that happen in the book that matches my thesis statement, that gives my thesis statement support. Okay. However, Saramago changes his tone as he moves further into the novel. The writer starts to question, for example, the role Mary played in Jesus' upbringing. He does that by pointing out how women were and are still seen in societies from that part of the globe, submissive, as well as forbidden to take part in political and religious life, to name a few. So here is the other part of the argument, in which this sounds like extremely provoking. We tend to see women, at least like Mary, as a very important figure in Jesus' life. However, Saramago points out that the likelihood that this would happen, that this had happened, was very, very small. Because of what? Well, women were submissive. I mean, in some cultures today, women are still seen as the weaker sex, I would say. In some countries, they are forbidden still to take part, like in political and in religious life. In the case of they were Jews back in the day, and as far as I know, Saramago, he describes a scene in which Joseph, he goes to the shrine to pray. Mary follows him, but she, if I'm not mistaken, she prays at a separate place inside of the temple. So it shows that she didn't have like an important role in, like that women didn't have like an important role in society. So that's why it's like thought-provoking. And there are many other examples in which he does that. He says, well, these things that we have in the Bible, such as the role of Mary in Jesus' upbringing and so on, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then I wasn't able, because of the space that Instagram actually allows us to, or the size of the text that Instagram actually allows us to use, I was not able to make a huge text. But I believe that I was clear about my argument. Okay, the second part of the argument, which was that in some parts of the book he writes things that are extremely thought-provoking. And this is like one of the examples. So from that on, I just goes to the conclusion, in which I bring back my thesis statement. These interesting insights take place over and over again throughout the story. They make us put in check what is told in the Holy Book, in a sense the Bible, or what our parents have told us when we were little. It's pretty much like bringing back the thesis. And here I actually added this sentence because it was a suggestion for some of my students or for people who follow me on Instagram to read the book. So I said something like, it is a fascinating story which I recommend to those students who want to improve their already rich vocabulary. Already rich because you have to have a very good vocabulary to read that in English. Okay, so this is like kind of like sums up the things that we talked about in the first video, and I hope I have made myself clear about all of the points that I mentioned earlier or in the last video. what else here? And that's about it. Hopefully with all of my tips and also showing you an example of an essay, from now on you will be able to write your own essays. So today's video will be that. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed, please push the like button. This will definitely help me a lot. And if you're interested in this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel. As I told you earlier, I post videos here on a weekly basis, and I will see you later. Cheers.